Hey everybody, I'm here today to show you how to patch up a large hole in the wall. So as you can see right here, I have a fairly large hole in the wall, and I'm going to show you a very simple way to patch it up. So the first step is to actually get the drywall for this hole. Now instead of trying to cut the drywall to fit this piece, I'm going to cut the hole to fit the drywall. Now, in order to do that, I need to cut a piece of drywall to be a little bit bigger than this hole right here. So I've already done that. I've cut this piece of drywall right here, and as you can see, it is slightly bigger than the hole. So I'm going to take this piece of drywall that is slightly bigger than the hole, and I'm going to trace it onto the wall. So I'm going to place it over the hole, ensure that it is completely covering the hole, and now I'm going to simply trace it onto the wall using this marker. Now that I have traced that piece of drywall onto the wall, I'm going to use this drywall saw to cut along the lines that I have traced. And that will allow the hole in the wall to be the same size as the piece of drywall. So I'm going to use this saw and I'm going to cut along the lines that I have traced. Alright, so now as you can see, I have made the cut in the wall so that the hole is the same size as the drywall. And we're just going to do a very dry run, like a sort of a test fit right now. And as you can see, it fits perfectly, but there isn't really any support for the drywall. Drywall needs to be supported properly. There is this one stud right here that I can put some screws into through the drywall and into this stud, but there's not really any support on this side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some support. So I have actually cut two pieces of wood to fit in the hole, but also fit over this part of the drywall. So basically, I'm going to put these two pieces of wood just like this right over here, and I am going to screw into the pieces of wood through the pre-existing wall. So I'm going to place some screws right here and right here to hold the wood in place, and this wood will be used as the backing for the drywall. And obviously make sure that you can use whatever type of wood that you would like to, but make sure that it is lined up with the pre-existing studs in the wall. This way the drywall isn't raised out too far or sunken in too far. So once again, I'm just going to get these two pieces of wood and I'm going to screw into the pieces of wood through the pre-existing wall, and they will form the backing for the new piece of drywall that I will be installing. So now that I have secured these pieces of wood to the pre-existing wall, I have given the drywall some backing. And not only does it allow the drywall to be very secure in its position, but it also gives me some things to drill into. So with that being said, I'm going to take this drywall and I'm going to fit it in the hole properly, and then I'm going to use some drywall screws to secure it into place. And I'm going to screw into these pieces of wood right here that I will be using as the backing. Now that the drywall is in place and it is secure, I am going to use some tape around the perimeter of the new piece of drywall that I've put in to hide the seams. Now, there are a few different types of tape that you can use, but I have decided to use this one because it's really simple and easy to apply. You simply wet it, and then you can actually just stick it on to cover the seams. So I'm going to use this tape right here around the perimeter of the new piece of drywall to cover the seams. Now that I have finished putting some tape around the perimeter of the drywall to hide the seams, I am going to apply some spackling compound or drywall compound to the taped area. And I'm going to do this so that it sort of blends in. The new drywall will blend in with the pre-existing drywall once we apply the compound and we sand it and so forth and we make it look good. So this will be the first layer of spackling compound or drywall compound that I will be applying. So I'm just going to sort of get it on there very, very briefly and very roughly just to cover the area. I'm not trying to make it look amazing just yet. I'm just going to get it on there at first. Now that I have applied the first layer of drywall compound, we have to give it some time to fully dry. Now remember, when you are applying the first layer of compound, the goal is not to make it look good. We can make it look good later. The goal is to cover up the seams and the holes that were created when we screwed in those screws into those pieces of wood. So we're going to cover up the seams and the screws, just like I did, and now we're going to give it some time to dry. And we will come back once it has dried and continue the process. Alright, so now I have given the compound enough time to dry, and it is completely dry. So the next step is to take some sandpaper and just sand over the compound really briefly, just to get out any significant bumps or lines. Now remember, we're not trying to make it look perfect yet because we are going to put another layer of compound on top. That is when we will make it look nice and smooth. Right now we're just going to take the sandpaper and I'm just going to go over it very briefly to get out any significant bumps or any significant lines or anything that is significantly off. So I'm going to take the sandpaper and just go over it briefly. Now that the compound has been sanded, there's one more thing that we have to do before we apply the next layer of compound to this wall right here, and that is to use the head of a broom to brush off any excess dust that was created when we sanded the compound right now. So I'm just going to use this head of the broom, and I'm literally just going to just gently wipe it against it a few times, make a few passes over the wall, just to ensure that any excess dust gets off of the wall. The next step is to apply a thin layer of drywall compound to the area. Now, this is the second layer, the second coat of drywall compound that we are applying. So the goal is to make it look good because we're going to try to start making it look good. So apply a very thin coat and try and cover up any of the tape lines and any of the tape and any of the screw holes that you see. So we're applying a very thin layer of drywall compound to the area and we're trying to make it look good. Alright, so I've just finished applying the second coat of drywall compound to the wall. Now, if you noticed, I was much more careful when applying the second coat of compound than I was when I applied the first coat of compound. And that is because when we are applying the second coat of compound, you're going to want to make it look good. You're going to want to smooth out any imperfections. And you're going to want to apply the compound so that in a way that will cause you to have to do the least amount of sanding. So be very delicate and very careful when applying the second coat of compound. And now that it has been, lathered onto the wall, we're going to give it adequate time to dry. Now that the second coat of compound has dried, I am going to use this sandpaper to go over it. And once again, with this second coat of compound, when I am sanding it, my goal is to get rid of all of the imperfections and to make it look as nice as possible. And then once we have finished sanding, we can judge whether or not we need a third coat of compound. So I'm going to take this sandpaper and I'm going to go over it, and I'm going to sort of smooth out all the bumps and make all of the transitions as smooth as possible. So now that I have finished sanding the second coat of compound, I can take a look and see if I am satisfied. Now, in my case, I am satisfied with the way that it looks. And to be honest with you, I'm in the middle of a kitchen renovation, and there's going to be a pantry here to cover this entire wall anyway, so this will not be seen. But if you are satisfied with the way that it looks after you have sanded down the second coat of compound, then you can take a broom, brush off any excess dust, and you can pretty much apply some primer over it, and then apply some paint on that area. But if you're not satisfied, then you can add another layer of compound. So if you're not satisfied after you have sanded the second layer of compound, you can get some more spackling compound or drywall compound and add on a thin layer to tune out any imperfections, any areas that you are not satisfied with. So once again, it's totally up to you. You can stop after you have sanded the second coat of compound, or you can go on to do a third coat and sand it, and even a fourth coat if you really, really think that you need it. But it's totally up to you. Leave it or add some more compound and repeat the process. Sand once the compound has dried. And it's literally that simple. As you can see, it's pretty easy to fix a rather large hole in the wall. And that's all I have for you today. Thanks for watching.